I was more involved in like busting them because I didn't like. You have to look at child porn if you're going to be a child porn agent. You have to look at it.
Did you ever see it?
I've seen images. It's terrible.
Yeah,
because you have to confirm and so like that. You got to put in a database called NECMIC, which national. It's a database that like looks for missing and exploited children. And what ends up happening is if you get like CP, we call it CP. You put it into this database and it like will tell you if it's like a missing child or it confirms if it's actual child porn, and then that's how you.
I did a pod with Dr. Phil, and he was mentioning something about what happens at the border.
Yeah, and
he was saying something how, and I don't know if you know this to be true or not. He was saying how like kids will get smuggled in to the States with like barcodes on them to places that they're supposed to go.
Yeah,
and Border Patrol agents like can't do anything about it. They just let it happen.
No. So what ends up happening is this. So like it depends, right? So immigration's like one of these like things that is heavily enforced or not enforced depending on who's in office. Anytime there's a Democrat in office, I've seen this like it's kind of like cyclical. We had a border crisis when Obama was in. We having it right now with Biden. Whenever there's a Democrat in, typically immigration is not as heavily enforced between Border Patrol and ICE, right? So think of Border Patrol as like they're the front lines. They're dealing with the immigration problem at the border. And then you got Immigration Customs Enforcement, ICE, deportation officers. They're dealing with the aliens that are already in. They prioritize criminal aliens, not necessarily people that are just here illegally, right? That's why one of those guys we caught, remember yesterday?
Yep.
He said, I crossed in 2006, but he didn't have an alien. I asked him, what's your alien registration number? He didn't have one. The reason why is because he's never dealt with law enforcement. Well, immigration. And that happens a lot of the times when, if they've never committed a crime or whatever, until we caught them, they won't deal with immigration. And that's where ICE comes in and deals with them because Border Patrol only has authority 30 miles from the functional border.
Is that like that in every state or just California?
What do you mean? As far as like ICE being enforced?
Right.
Well, ICE is federal. So, but when there's a Democrat in, they're a lot more lax in like going after illegal aliens. They prioritize criminal aliens. And even that, when there's a Democrat in, they're even reluctant to do that.
So if he was in a different state and he never had papers since 2006, would it be the same scenario?
There's a higher likelihood. Like if he was like in Texas and he was like living closer to the border, there'd be a higher likelihood he would face like some consequences. But that's why a lot of illegal aliens, when they come into the United States, they go to sanctuary cities, San Francisco, LA, New York, like even Austin, Texas is like really liberal about that, despite being in a red state like Texas. But to answer your question with the barcodes, so when Border Patrol catches them at the border, bro, 9 out of 10 times they give them something called an ER, an expedited removal. Just send them back, right? Unless like they have asylum or some like credible fear, but most of the time they're just sent back, ER. But if they're not caught, right, and they make it into the United States, what ends up happening is you'll have the coyote walks them across, right, and they get them in the brush or whatever it may be. Then their driver comes and picks them up off like a highway. Once they get picked up at the highway, they get taken to a stash house. That's the first staging location. Once they're at that stage house, they typically have to pay more to get moved north, right? They got to pay another $1,000, whatever it may be, right, to that smuggler that has that leg of the situation. Because it's compartmentalized where there's different legs of the trip. So that smuggler, he doesn't want to keep the aliens there, so they don't charge as much. Hey, I just need this guy out of here. Because when you're on the border, you have, Border Patrol has more authority because it's considered the functional equivalent of the border. So, they're searching houses and they're on the border. So they got to get those aliens out of there. So like what they're trying to do is get them north as quickly as possible. They want to get them to San Antonio. Like when I was in Laredo, the first destination is almost always San Antonio because Interstate Highway 35 is right there. Take them there. And then from San Antonio, you got Interstate 10, which takes you from Jacksonville on the East Coast all the way to LA on the West Coast, right? And it goes through a bunch of major cities on the way. So they get them to San Antonio. They're pretty much safe because there's no Border Patrol up there in San Antonio because it's not the functional equivalent to the border where they have authority. And local police are way more reluctant to enforce any type of immigration crime. Way more reluctant. Like LAPD, they won't even ask your alienage. NYPD, these sanctuary cities, these police won't even ask alienage because they want to stay away from it. It's politically bad. Mayors will even say, don't ask these questions because it's a federal thing. So once they get to San Antonio,
they want federal agents to ask and not local.
Well, two reasons. Number one, a lot of these blue mayors, they don't want to touch immigration. Number one, they want to say we're a sanctuary city. And then number two, the police don't even have the authority to really enforce. It's called Title 8, which is immigration. They don't have the authority to do it. So, but they don't even want them calling immigration a lot of times. They'll just say, hey, if they didn't commit a crime, that's a state crime, like get them out of here.
How is it different?
Like let them go.
Let them go. Dude, I've had it before where we've had detainers, which when let's say you got a criminal alien, right? They're in jail, right? And immigration will put a detainer on them because we want to go and pick them up, right? Or ICE wants to go pick them up. The police will let them go. We don't got to abide by this detainer, even though it's federal. We don't care.
Was it different under Trump?
Under Trump, that he was super pro law enforcement, they were getting rid of people. Yeah, we're sending everybody back. We're sending everybody back.
So they're what? Because
to finish. Sorry. So they get to San Antonio. Then when they get
no. Back on the Trump thing. So like you're saying, okay, there's a different political leader, right?
Yeah.
Different president.
Yeah.
So they just like, hey, by the way, local PD, like, get them this time or not? Like, what are they like? You know what I'm saying? Like,
so that's up to the discretion of the mayor. So like a lot of mayors are just hands off with immigration. They don't even.
So is it the mayor or is it the president? That's you know what I'm saying?
Well, here's the thing. So like, if so, it depends. So like, if you're in a sanctuary city, like in New York, even if Trump's in office, he's pro enforcement immigration. The mayor can always say, "Well, I don't want my PD asking immigration questions. They don't have the authority anyway," and they kind of hide behind that because they have state authority. They don't have federal authority. Immigration is inherently federal.
Right. So my question is, does it actually take an effect differently based on the president? Because you just said it did, but then it sounds like it doesn't.
How much power does the president have?
Yeah, so it's up to the mayor. The mayor still has like kind of final say on how he's going to tell his local police to handle it. But it tends to be when there's a Republican in office, from the presidential standpoint, we're a lot harder on immigration. Because what they'll do
even
is...
in the blue states?
Harder. Like the blue states still have jurisdiction, right? They still have like some kind of like semblance of what they want to do, but Republican presidents tend to be more like, okay, well, we're going to penalize you if you don't honor these immigration detainers.
Got it. Okay.
They'll cut funding, they'll penalize them to some degree, so they're more likely to cooperate. But some of them say, I don't care. I'm not going to. My police department is not going to enforce and/or deal with immigration.
Got it.
Some cities like New York, San Fran, LA.
Yeah.
That's why when Vitaly had that one predator on that was like an illegal alien with meth, and like he told the LAPD guy, hey, he's an illegal alien.